So Charlotte, where and when were you born?
I was born 1965, July 12th, 1965. I was born in Guam. My dad was military.
And that makes you a Cancer in terms of your astrological sign? Correct.
Correct.
Do you feel like you're a homebody, sensitive, emotional? Does that describe you at all?
I am fairly sensitive. I keep my emotions under attack. It took many years of practice to do that, but I am fairly emotional. Um, I have homebody tendencies, but I probably am not that much of a homebody.
Okay. Sylvester, what about you? Where and when were you born?
I was born January 10th, 1967, in Beaumont, Texas.
And that makes you a Capricorn?
Correct.
Are you an earthy mountain goat, can be stubborn at times, forward moving? Does that describe you at all?
Probably the probably. I don't see myself as stubborn, but that's
You,
probably
you are, you are.
that's probably in my head.
You
So
let me phrase that. You can be stubborn
yeah,
when you kind of get your mind set on certain things,
yeah.
even though you do try to be open minded.
Maybe stubborn's not the strong word, the right word. It's resolved or determined or goal oriented or something like that would be more accurate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, what about your education and career paths? What kind of trajectory did you take since you were young?
I can
You want
start.
to go?
Yeah. Um, I have a bachelor's degree in English creative writing, even though for the most part I haven't really gotten to use the creative writing part. I've got to use the writing part. Um, I worked for an insurance company to put myself through school, and I just basically ended up getting stuck in insurance. I took a little bit of a break working as a software tester, but for the most part, I've worked for insurance companies most of my career.
And do you do management or what's your specialty?
Most of the time, I worked as a trainer, but for probably the last 7 or 8 years, I've been working in compliance as a manager. And part of my time in training, I also worked in manager as a manager. So management for the most part, but administrative type stuff.
And you've been interested in the legal aspects in terms of the compliance role, right?
Yes, yes. Basically making sure we're following privacy rules at work. So HIPAA,
Hmm.
if you're familiar with HIPAA.
Yeah. Do you do creative writing for fun when you're not at work?
I haven't been. I've been having trouble. I've had like a many years writer's block. A very long writer's block that it's kind of hard for me to do the creative writing part, do that much writing.
What some people suggest is just to set aside a half an hour or 15 minutes every day and just write about your day or about what you dreamed the previous night or something, and with no judgment, just to get the juices flowing.
Yeah, my hardest part is the judgment part. It's like I remember what I was, and it's kind of hard not writing up to that same. But I do need to try that.
Mm-hmm. Um, Sylvester, what about you?
So my first degree is in business administration. I use some version of that in and wandered a bit until my late 20s, early 30s, and then I went back to school, got an undergraduate degree in English, and then a graduate degree in English, and attempted to get my PhD. I didn't finish my dissertation. I got
ABD.
Yes, yes, and it's and it was enough at some point. And and I've been some form of a teacher since 2002. I've been in high school the last 7 years, I think, 6 or 7 years, and then prior to that, I was an adjunct um, cop when I was attempting a PhD, which is normal adjunct slash uh, graduate assistant
Many years.
for a good while.
And do you? I assume you teach English in high
Yes,
school.
I teach it. Yes, I teach English.
And that's so much work. I taught high school a long time ago, and there's so much paperwork with 5 classes, and in English, you've got to give them feedback. How do you manage all the correcting and all the paperwork that you have to do as an English teacher?
I'm I'm not sure. A lot of times I'm actually not sure how I manage it. It's some of it is just learning how to shorthand your notes, in that sort of thing, and just um, let the administrative part take care of itself as it does.
That's what I would do. Is IC means incomplete sentence, and the sign for a paragraph means you need to put a paragraph here, and then you could go through pretty fast. Um, do you see any differences? I'm really interested in young people. I've written different books about them. Do you see any differences between Generation Y, the millennials, and now the teens who are Generation Z? Um, some people say that both of them are anxious, fragile teacups with helicopter parents who didn't let them solve problems. What do you find in terms of the two generations?
Um, I don't I don't find them necessarily that different. I think they're largely they're largely teenagers, right? They're that with teenage issues, and one class may seem quote lazier than the other, or whatever, but as soon as I make a judgment that this is this generation of teenage, I'll get a class that's a section of kids that's very different from those, and I think largely they're just kids trying to find their way, and hmm, and wake up at 14 knowing everything, and right, that the large pattern of that. I think we're all doing what, at least from my reading, every generation of adults do. Oh, we don't know how those kids are going to make it, and then we forget that the adults said the same thing about us. So, so
I just finished a book about climate girls saving our world, where I interviewed climate activists and young women. And what I was so impressed with that particular group of teens from around the world is they are so smart, so well informed, so angry at adults for destroying the planet, so confident that their generation has the power to make change. Um, it's amazing to me how much they know because of the internet and whatever.
right. Yeah, that's one of the biggest differences in the way they're able to get knowledge is that there's no restriction. There's no, they're not, we're probably of the generation where we were still, well, especially me growing up in a relative small town, information was not just available. Going to the library, you had, our public library was probably no bigger than a normal high school library, right? It was not much bigger than that, and so information was limited. Now most subjects you have too much information, or not and how to get that is it's a different chapter. that's a different challenge. Actually, one of the things that I didn't didn't suspect, even from the earth that's changed from right at 2000 till now, is, oh yeah, they can. How do I teach somebody who can get who information is not an issue with?
The other thing I noticed with those girls is a lot of them don't read books except for school. They get their information from articles online and stuff. So, can you get your students to read novels or whatever you sign them? Do they read them?
Uh, Largely, no, unless I chunk them down. Are they inherently interested in reading? But I'm not sure how different that was back then for the rank and file student. For those of us who enjoyed reading, we always read, and the kids who like reading now still read. But the rank and file person who doesn't want to concentrate, yeah, you have to break it into smaller chunks, smaller usable chunks, and yeah, that's.
How did you two meet?
Well, we met online. It was kind of funny. I was on this local site, dating site in Houston, and I put this ad that had been on for about a year, and I pretty much forgot about the site because I wasn't really dating at the time, online or otherwise. He somehow stumbled across the site and he sent me an email. And I got the email, and the email was basically a book. He pretty much told me, you pretty much told me everything.
See, I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought
it was pretty thorough, which impressed me. It was pretty thorough.
Really, I didn't remember it being that long.
No, it was long. You told me, what you were currently doing. You told me that you took care of your mother. You told me just a lot of good information. And I thought, okay, cool. I need to reply to this, and then I promptly forgot about the email. I went out of town, and about a month later, I was going through my email, cleaning it out. And it's like, oh, I never did reply to this. So I replied to him, and I think he had forgot about me by the time I replied.
Yes. The honest answer is I get it and I go,
who's that?
Oh, yeah. I think I now remember, but with the, my finger on the delete button, right? It's right, because it was just, and then, I read it and we replied, and then we started talking. Was it email or the instant? No, it was instant.
It was instant. It was
instant messenger, which was.
Yeah, because this was like 2001, 2002.
Yeah,
so.
And I didn't, and between slow computer and bad connection where I was, and I'm not the best typer, even considering what I do, my typing is still shaky.
So we started talking on the phone pretty quickly.
Yes, because
I'm a very fast typist, and I'm also a bit of a stickler on spelling. And between his typing and his spelling, it was like, okay, we need to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
We started talking, and here we are.
Well, were you both in the same area, living in the same vicinity?
No. He was in Beaumont. We were at least 90 minutes apart. He was in Beaumont, and I was in Houston.
Yeah. So it depends on your concept of vicinity. We were relatively close, but not next door. We were. Yeah.
What was your first date when you saw each other face to face in real life?
So I was at the time a season ticket holder to the Houston Texans football team, and I invited her to the football game because I was literally going to be in town. So it's a very easy date, and so in that sense, and I think I even knew she wasn't a football fan, but she got a shirt, and I went to her, picked her up at her home, and I find it now funny because she had a family friend and he's thin, but he was still like 6'5", right? Guy walking around.
Like you don't bring her back in one piece.
And her mom was there asking me all kind of questions, and I just, yes, you can have my not my, I don't know if she has my driver's license number, but definitely my plate numbers. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not. so I was like, I didn't know I was, and so that's when we first met face to face, and then we went to the game. And the game was the game. I don't even remember who won, lost, or whatever. But after the game,
we decided we were going to go grab something to eat at a pizza joint that wasn't too far. Well, I get motion sick pretty easily, especially if I'm hungry. I get motion sick. So he was driving, and it was stop and go traffic, and we weren't too far from the pizza place, so I had to get out the car and walk. It's like I couldn't. And then even afterwards, we went to like a little neighborhood bar, and he let me drive his car there, just in case, because he was very thoughtful, just in case I would still be motion sick.
And was it love at first sight, or what did you think about each other?
After the first date, and I'm a very practical person when it comes to love. After the first date, I was telling people that's my next husband.
Yeah. I wasn't quite there. I mean, I thought she was attractive and it was a good date, but outside of the motion sickness part, but I don't think I had went that far. It was obviously, it was good enough to where we can meet again. But I wasn't that level of sure.
And I think with me, one reason that I was sure is just the connection was part of it. But when we went to sit at the little neighborhood bar, we laid everything on the table. I mean, we warts and all. He knew everything about me. I told him everything. He told me everything about him. So with the connection that was already building, I saw a very open person, a person that I felt that I can trust, a person I felt that I can grow to care about even more. So I was pretty sure.
Had you had previous long-term relationships?
We both had been previously married. I had been married from 24 to 27, and then was divorced. What was that? 10 years before we.
I was
somewhere in there.
I was about at 10 too when we met.
Yeah.
I had been married for about 5 years. I married my high school sweetheart.
And did you have children from those marriages?
We did not.
No children.
No.
And do you have children?
We don't have children.
No.
You care for your mother?
Yeah, well, mothers. Yeah. At one point, we had both mothers with us.
And I'm still my mother's not physically in, but I'm still responsible for a large part of her care from the facility she's at. So yes, we both of our mothers have our fathers both passed probably relatively close, right?
Right, around the same time.
Mine was 99. I don't remember.
Your mom's was like 97.
Yeah, so it was.
So we both kind of took on the responsibility of taking care of our moms.
And what did you each learn from your first marriage that you could apply to your second? What were the lessons that you brought from them?
For me, it taught me what I was willing to put up with. It taught me, it kind of gave me more an ideal of who I was looking for and who I deserved to find. So that's what I walked away from my first marriage with, because I truly do believe that if I wouldn't have had that first marriage work the way it did, this marriage would not work the way it works.
Explain that a little bit more. What?
Oh, sure, sure. With that first marriage, I learned what it meant to be coupled with someone. I learned what make a marriage good, what make a marriage work, what make it not work. I learned patience, but I learned not to have too much patience. I learned just all the things I learned being in that first relationship and observing it kind of from afar, so to speak. I learned what I needed to do for this relationship to work and what I personally needed to be in what I considered a good relationship. I was so young when I got married the first time. I didn't really know all that.
What would you say was the major reason you divorced your first husband?
The major reason I divorced him is because I realized at some point we weren't on the same path. He was fairly immature. He stayed fairly immature throughout the whole relationship. There was no growth. And I realized that 10 years from now, there probably still wouldn't be any growth if I stayed in a relationship. So I realized it was time to go.
Got it. Sylvester, what did you learn from your first?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing I learned was really get to know who you're marrying. My first relationship, we unlike the high school sweetheart, we met, we started living together in 3 months and were married in 6 months. And so it was just, even if you think you know the person, I just literally, because one of the things that happened with us is I was just like, well, even when I thought I knew, I still waited like a calendar year before I asked her to marry, just because, and especially considering we weren't living in the same city, just because you needed, to learn this person, and stuff came up, and we, and it was, so, and I don't think I just knew my first wife, like literally. I, we just.
What was the main stumbling block in terms of her approach to life?
Well, probably, and it's not even a wrong thing, but she was very. You just get married, you get jobs, you don't have to like your job. And you just live, and that's it. That's, and you go out on the weekend, and you do this for 50 years, and you right. And I'm like, me not totally not liking my job for 50 years doesn't, that kind of just, this is what you do. Why would you do anything different? That's probably the biggest thing. Difference was and that's a core approach to life of, somebody, obviously somebody who later tries to attempt to get a PhD, but with some married to somebody who wants you to just, hey, that assistant manager's job at Hardee's is perfectly fine. We're doing good. Don't mess with it, right? Because that's really what I was doing when we were married, right? And so that's, yeah.
So it
that's
sounds like both of you had the same experience where you didn't feel the first marriage was evolving, growing, expanding, and you wanted to be with someone that you could grow with. So what's an example of how you have, in fact, grown, expanded, developed in this marriage that shows that the kind of goals that you were looking for that you've achieved in growth?
Wow, I know that the specific example is probably tough.
I would say, me think. That's a hard question.
Yeah, it is.
I'm proud of her for asking hard questions. That's what you're supposed to do.
What? Okay, let me ask it differently. How have you grown? How are you different than when you got married to each other?
I would say we are different. I think you've had more growth than I have, quite honestly.
Well,
You took a side.
I literally had to have more growth. I had to have more growth, or I might not be here.
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah.
because I can think of from a professional standpoint, um, and any professional growth I've made has came from personal growth in a relationship. Because I've managed to advance pretty quickly in a good distance at work because I had somebody that I could turn to and discuss different situations and get feedback and get support as I took on like these different things that I did at work. Um, so I know I've grown from a personal perspective. Um, I think I've been stagnant for the last couple of years, but that has nothing to do with the marriage. That has more to do more with internal stuff with me. Um, Let me think a little bit. I'm tagging you in.
Oh, okay. So growth. So even though in a I tell people this, I was probably when we were married, I still wasn't. I wasn't probably as immature as we described our first relationship, but I still, relative to age, to mid 30s, whatever we were, I was still relatively immature, and I've probably matured closer to my chronological age now. Eh, my chronological age now, and a lot of the growth was the ability to be able to have somebody support me through attempting a major thing and failing, and largely failing, and then having to sort of reset, and sort of having to reset and go, it's not the worst thing, and I'm not going to leave you because you failed, but I'm going to be there and just push you to, hey, let's push you, and now you can grow and do something. Obviously, teaching from an English degree is not some magical leap or whatever, but the ability to sort of go there and do that day in and day out when I really arguably hadn't done that, hadn't really done you're lining up and going to work every day in a long, going to work versus studying and whatever happens in grad school. That's a
So
that's a
by failure, you mean just not doing the dissertation?
just not finishing. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And and in big world, that's not, it's like somebody even beforehand goes, okay, if you don't do it, remember you failed getting a PhD. That's something most of the world doesn't
And you
even
have an
try.
ABD. That's a lot.
Yes, so that's that, and so yeah, so not getting it, yes. So, but yes, that's what somebody I think told me before I started. Even was like, if you don't make it, most of the world don't even think to try that. So don't. And so I know it's a relative first world failure in a sense, but it's still, doesn't mean it doesn't suck, right?
Yeah, my experience is the years I spent on the dissertation it was so narrow. It was really boring and didn't expand my knowledge in a way that I wanted to expand my knowledge. If that the classes were interesting, the studying for the comprehensive, I learned a lot, but the dissertation itself was so narrow. It's really restrictive and burdensome.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, you described the words, one of my friends who also didn't complete his he felt that, and one of the things that happened to him at some point, and I want to say he went a couple of years longer than I did. He just went, I finally know exactly what they want, and I don't want to do it.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Oh no, I was about to say while he was talking, it kind of, and it's going to be a weird, would I say, a weird type of growth, but it was growth for me. I spent most of my life having to be the mature one in my family, just family dynamics. I always was the mature one. Getting with him allowed me the freedom to be immature sometimes.
have fun.
So I don't feel like I went backwards per se, but it allowed me to experience letting my guards down and being a little bit immature because I knew the way I've taken care of people, there would be someone there to take care of me.
Sweet. Were you the firstborn child in your family?
No, I'm the baby, but I'm the only girl. So I was the baby. But I'm the only girl, and I grew up in a dynamic where my mom kind of believed that the girl needed to be the strong one because of how she grew up. So she raised a strong girl.
Sylvester, what's your birth order in your family?
I'm the baby by like 8 years. I'm the youngest by 8 years. Even in my cousins at 26, I'm the youngest male. I think only 2 of my cousins are younger than me. 26 from one side and the other side. I'm still, I think, the youngest male actually. From I think a group about 50.
So when you have had conflicts, what have they been? I mean, couples usually argue over money, in-laws, housework. When you do have a conflict, are there themes?
We really don't have a lot. I can think of once when it was over my mom because my mother and I got in an argument and he thought that it would be a good idea to get involved. And it was one of those situations where my mom and I made up that same day and I didn't talk to him for a couple of days. Because just that's my mother and my relationship. And that was his first time, or maybe he got tired of us arguing and he wanted to kind of.
It's probably more than second. Yeah, it's probably more than second if I'm remembering this correct. I really vaguely remember it.
Did your mother live with you?
Oh yeah. At one point, both of our mothers lived with us. Now his mom is in a facility, and my mom still stays with her.
How does that influence your spontaneity or your fun?
Well, spontaneity is almost non-existent. I would say probably a couple of times a year we try to get away.
Yeah.
Even if it's just go stay in a hotel in town. And just have my brother come and watch my mom or something, but yeah, it does affect it, but we work around it. We work with it. Yeah. We really haven't had that many arguments, have we?
Not really. No. I and it's lesser now. One of the things I think that happened, especially when I used to drive further, and I think especially when I was driving from Cleveland, a lot of times when things came up, we were able to talk through them before they got to whatever. I think it's more really I'll call and drive home, and I used to tell people one of the things that it did was. Like, well, what do you do? Because of my previous job, what do you do in the hour that it takes you to get from where you? I was like, I call, and we get rid of all the junk, the daily junk before, and so when we come home, we just are hanging out, and that doesn't mean we're that doesn't even really mean we necessarily having conversation, but we cleared the just life junk most days before we actually see each other. Because I leave before she's up, and that's been that way for a long time. I leave before she's up, and so our first chance to talk is in the afternoon, and we clear all of that, and then the next, and so when we meet, that's done with, and even if it's, I don't, and I think a lot of it gets cleared before it gets to
The point of
the
being
part.
an argument, because
Yeah.
we both are really good at when we kind of feel something brewing, talking it out
Yeah.
before it brews. And like you said, that's
Yeah.
what a lot of the drive home conversation, because it used to be kind of the same when I drove.
Right. When you drove, yes, because you stopped. By the time I started driving a lot, you stopped. So,
Yeah, I started working at home.
Yeah. So,
But yeah.
and also one of the things, and I'm going to say that I'm conscious of, is I'm one of these people who's normally like this, but I have a switch, the where did that person come from switch, and I'm really conscious of not flipping it, trying not to flip it, of being like, oh, I have the temper that people go, oh, I didn't know he had that temper, and I try not to flip it unnecessarily.
Because he knows if he does, I will smother him in his sleep.
Yeah. But yeah, so a couple times. Yeah, so I'm from my end, I'm conscious of.
Hold on.
Okay. How did you decide who was going to move? Because if you were 90 minutes apart when you met.
So we both moved. We both moved, actually. So what happened was we were married in June. So I got accepted to UTA's PhD program, and so we were married. I finished in May. We were married the same weekend I finished. I said June. It's May, actually.
May. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And then I moved. We both moved from Houston to Beaumont to here. So there wasn't a one move. I came up first, and so the weirdest thing with that is we didn't really live into the same city until we had been married almost six months, somewhere around there. We didn't live in the same city. That was about the weirdest thing.
Are in the same city, same house.
Yeah.
Our first time living, which is unusual these days, our first time living together is when we were married.
Yeah, we had a couple of weeks where I quote stayed after we were married, but I really didn't. But even then, I drove back and forth.
Right.
I drove back home at least once a week. So and it really wasn't that long. And it really wasn't that long now to think about it.
And UTA is University of Texas at Austin, right?
Arlington. I'm sorry.
Arlington.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved to we moved to this city we live in now, the University of Texas at Arlington. That's a local. Yeah. So locally, UT is the big school in Austin, and UTA becomes and you wouldn't know that because yes, that wouldn't and it's clear to locals, but wouldn't be clear to anybody else. Yeah.
How do you manage family work, cooking, cleaning, shopping, especially with having your mother there? How do you manage the work?
He does most of the cooking. I cook holiday meals, and every once in a while I cook on a Sunday, but he does most of the cooking. He does the shopping because he doesn't trust me at a store, and for good reason. He's a much better shopper than I am. And then cleaning, we kind of divvy up stuff. Like I wash clothes, he washes dishes most of the time. So we kind of divvy it up.
Well, it sounds like he does more if he does the cooking and washing.
Well, he washes dishes, I wash clothes.
Yeah, but it's
he probably does more.
okay, but yeah, it's okay.
Good husband.
But especially considering a lot of the time especially
At the beginning of the relationship, when he was in school and I was working out of the house, he was here more, so we got in the habit of him doing.
And your mom did a lot more. The moms both, but your mom especially did
a lot more earlier on.
Early. It's really been. I think it's really been the last 3 years or so where it's probably been where the bulk of the honestly, where the bulk of the responsibility has been 95% on us. Probably the last 3 to 5 years. I don't know. It was a sliding. So we had lots of help. Previous, and it, as our parents aged,
right,
it became, because both of them wanted to contribute, and so they did a lot. We had a lot of help, and like I said, last 3 to 5 years probably.
I was saying he does probably do more of the stuff than I do, more of the day to day.
All the studies show that men who do that get a lot of affection from their wives. Their wives are very happy.
Yes.
Okay.
See, that's why I get a good night kiss every night.
Oh.
How did your mothers get along when they were both living with you?
Depending on the day.
It was hit or miss. Yeah.
It was hit or miss. I think it was a situation where they both kind of like being the center of attention. My mom more so than his.
They're also used to having, like, my mom had lived, before we moved, she had lived in the same house for 30 some years, like literally same house, and it was, she was housewife routine. A lot of it was they had ways they liked to do, like they had ways they wanted to do things. And most of the time when they conflicted, it was over, in my head at least as I'm remembering it, was over how to do this, or you want how to do this thing or that thing. And then the other days they were, best buddies and loved each other.
Exactly.
And watched each other, made sure the other one didn't hurt themselves and all of that kind of.
So it's kind of like having children, only they were children that were older than you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, neither one of them probably. I didn't want to hear that, but yeah.
But it's the truth. It's the truth. Yeah. I used to tell my friends we had a adolescent and an unruly teen living in the house with us. Yeah. His mom was the adolescent, my mom was the unruly teen.
That's funny. So what do you do for fun besides go for a little vacation now and then?
We talk.
No.
We watch TV together. What do we do for fun? There's not a lot of time for fun.
Well, in the sense of craziness.
Before the pandemic, we had date night. We would go see plays, or we'll go out for dinner. We'll go to the comedy club. Since the pandemic, it's like
we generally went to plays and
plays, comedy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you work out investing, spending? Sounds like, Charlotte, you're more of a spender. How do you work out the money arrangements together?
Oh, that's real easy. We keep our money separate. He's on my account and I'm on his account, and we know each other's financial standing. But we keep our money separate. He pays most of the bills, and part of my paycheck, it goes to him because he pays like the utilities and stuff like that, and I pay my personal bills plus a couple of the utilities, like the phone bill and the car insurance and stuff like that. But we keep our money fairly separate, and we a couple of times a year we sit and we talk. We kind of work out a budget.
Yeah, yeah, you're being nice. We replaced the meeting with the financial advisor with this chapter.
Oh yeah,
Probably this week.
yeah.
So,
We've been
yeah.
meeting recently with a financial advisor, trying to kind of belatedly, but get prepared for when we do retire. So, but still, just the day to day finances.
Yeah, I don't think
We've
it's quite
never
as,
fought over money.
yeah,
Actually.
I don't think it's quite as separate as you make it. We have separate accounts, but really, it's a joint. It's kind of really jointly
Managed.
just kind of jointly managed. Even though I write or punch the button for these bills, it's not like she doesn't know. She doesn't know. And if I get to, so for me personally, I just cut that sentence off, but that's okay. And for me personally, if I get stuck and I go, I don't know how much we have in the general savings account you made, I'll just ask her, right? We're never really, it's not like one of us has, at least to my knowledge, one of us has $30,000 that the other one doesn't know about.
So although the accounts are separate, we do still kind of do everything together.
Yeah, it's a conversation. Yeah, it's a conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you do in terms of health maintenance? I'm interested because a lot of the people that I'm interviewing are, getting up there in terms of age, and they're peppy. So I'm wondering how you maintain health.
Yeah. So we tried the jointly before, and this is one of the things where I'm probably a little more consistent about. So I work out a handful of times a week. I'll walk and both work out a handful of times a week, and I eat in pretty specific ways, especially the last couple of years. Probably that's the health maintenance and doctors and that sort of thing. Because even though I'm not light at some point, everything that I understood was that even if you don't drop a bunch of weight, if you maintain the ability to move and exercise and all that, that's largely beneficial. Even if and the program I'm on is no more. I want to be able to eat like this 7 years from now. Then I do some massive Atkins things where you lose lots of weight, but because it's so drastic that you wind up yo-yoing.
Yo-yoing.
So,
Do you go to a gym, or do you have a room where you work out at home?
I walk multiple times a week, and I go to a gym. I go to a gym 2, sometimes 3. When I'm not at school, it's probably up to 3, maybe 4 times a week. But twice a week now, and try to walk in the mornings when I can. This time of the year is weird because it's
Either really cold or really wet.
Yeah, and the 4 o'clock to walk in the morning gets, even for somebody who's an early morning person, is still much.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I would say I'm not particularly active, but I do have a love-hate relationship with Weight Watchers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I've managed to lose a good amount of weight with them before, and with the pandemic, I managed to put a good amount of weight back on. So now I'm back in love with Weight Watchers.
And how does that work? You get your food from them, or what do they provide for you?
Basically, the main thing they provide is a way for me to keep track of the food that I eat and suggestions on what's good food to eat. So I don't necessarily get my food from them. It's just more guidance and a tool to track what I eat.
Some people say that they lose weight if they just stop eating wheat. If they cut out bread, then they lose weight. I don't know if that's simplistic or not.
Well, see, I don't eat a lot of bread. I don't eat a lot of food. My biggest problem is I love sweets. And I will eat sweets in place of food. So if I stop eating sweets and just eat more vegetables and fruit, that's what I did before when I lost about 80 pounds. It's like I just ate like I had sense and didn't live off of sugar. So that's what tends to work for me.
It seems to me if you have sweets in the house, they get eaten. So the secret is not to have them in the house.
Right. And most of the time we don't have them in the house, but there's a car outside and there's a store, store around the corner.
Uh-oh.
So no. So I have to get the mindset to just not go to the sweets.
Yeah, and I'm a meat and vegetables, potatoes person. I don't.
Yeah, you don't really eat a lot of sweets at all.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, the one donut a week in a bar is like generally more than enough for me.
Yeah, one donut a week is manageable.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is the one donut, maybe one mini ice cream bar a week, or a mini cup of ice cream. That's about it with sweet. Like if we have a piece of cake, I'll eat like 2 bites and be like.
Yeah, he normally eats a piece of my cake if cake is around.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm interested in how people repeat or do the opposite of their parents' relationships. Harville Hendrix' book, How to Get the Love You Want, really emphasizes that we repeat the familiar. So I'm wondering how your own parents' relationship, how you've reacted, repeated, done the opposite of, has influenced your marriage.
Oh, I would say we both did the complete opposite of our parents. My parents' relationship were volatile. And when I say volatile, I mean gunplay, threatening to set houses on fire, fighting, volatile. They separated about 3 or 4 times the whole time they were married. It was a mess. So my goal was to find someone who was rational and stable and whose temperament was more laid back. And also to find someone, part of my parents' relationship issues where they were so unbelievably different. I wanted to find someone that we saw things in the same manner, at least when it came to conflict.
Was your first husband stable?
He wasn't stable, no. Well, actually, yes. The first husband, his personality was really too laid back. He was really laid back. He and I didn't really fight. We had fun together. We played video games. All the things that young folk do. But no, in regards to emotionally, he was stable.
But boring.
Yeah.
Got it. Sylvester, your parents' marriage.
Oh, my parents were very traditional in the sense that my mom retired from school teaching when I was like 2 or 3, and my dad worked, took care of the house, was sort of a very dominant personality, and they had the clear house division of you do all the inside and cooking, cleaning, and my dad, could fix anything and do all of that. So he did all the house. I mean, it was literally as traditional as you get, and they were married a long time. They were, and the whole marriage thing from my standpoint was, it was Um, but one thing that I thought I never really thought my parents had fun. They were committed to each other, but I never thought that they were outside in. Uh, well, I wasn't outside totally, but I didn't think they enjoyed each other. I thought they were committed to each other, but they didn't enjoy
It was
each.
duty above all. Duty.
Yeah, and I could think of numerous examples of where that play, that would play out. Here's one just because it's an example that I think of more than most. So when my mom became ill at whatever point, and this was before the modern hospital where they've got the nice couch, got the nice couch or whatever in there. Like when she was sick, we would stay. Like he would literally physically stay in the hospital in the room with her if it meant sleeping darn near on the floor, right? It was, that was a duty thing, right? That was much more how he was. He would, suspend anything else he would do, and it's right now it's make sure she's all right, and that's what you do, right? The good and bad of that, right? The good and bad of that, both.
Well, was your first wife more? Did you have more fun with her? Was there more sparkle than your parents had?
Yes. I would say, I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes. But when we got, in that case, it was like when we got to actually beyond, we hung out and laughed and had fun and got to know each other. That's when it became, oh, you're really like this, and versus, we were the people who, were really probably good friends who started sleeping together, right, and would have figured out if we dated long enough that, oh yeah, it's fine or whatever, but we can move on, right? That we can move on. That was more of what I thought would have happened if we would have dated longer than being married and trying to buy houses and all, and doing everything we were trying to do at that time, right?
What's the role of or lack of it, religion, spirituality in your relationship?
I consider myself agnostic, bordering on atheist, depending on what day you ask me, but agnostic, more or less. And have majority of my life for as long as I can remember. Um, he considers himself a fairly spiritual person, and that's one of the things that we discussed on that first date. Because if that was a deal breaker to lay it out to begin with, I think what we discovered was that we have a lot of the same. From a moral perspective, our morality is similar. What we consider moral is similar. I'm using the wrong word.
You're good.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we figured it wasn't necessarily a deal breaker because I respect
values. Values is maybe the word.
Values is the word that I was looking for. Thank you. I respect his beliefs and he respect mine, or my lack of, or my whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So Sylvester, do you go to church? How do you?
No, I don't currently attend a church, but I do have spiritual practices and have more probably if you had to label it, it would be somewhere between I'm a Unitarian to a Unitarian to non-dual. If you needed to put a label on it, that would be what the most accurate version of a current label would be.
So there's a universal intelligence and love that we can tap into.
Yeah.
Our thoughts create our
Yeah.
life in many ways. Do you have a meditation practice as part of your practice?
Yes. Yeah. Most most mornings and evenings. In fact, actually, funny enough, that it's probably actually a hair off right now. Um, in my head, at least, it's a little not quite as whatever it usually is, but it's. But yes, I do have a meditation practice I like to follow, and I do get to go, and I do go to, especially online, and I do go to spiritual meetings and those sorts of things. So
Online.
yeah,
Yeah.
online. I even before the pandemic, um, it's probably been a while since I've been to a physical church. Um, as a probably been a year or two since I've been to the church I would practice at, which would have been a Unitarian church. Just
Got it. How does one over the decades keep romance, sparkle, not get bored? How do we keep it interesting in terms of romance?
I think that's because here's my deal. I think romance in a relationship is important, but I think as time goes by, different things become romantic. It's not always about the lit candle and the flowers and the this, that, and other. I find it romantic sometimes. Every once in a while, we'll sit and watch a movie together. I find that romantic, just the banter back and forth and enjoying the movie, or just enjoying time with him. So I would think over the years, romance, what we consider romantic, has changed, at least for me.
yeah. Um, so you don't have a quick answer for that.
How do you keep from having like physical intimacy be boring? How do you keep things
Um,
alive?
um, I was about to say don't overdo it is one way, but no, actually we're still pretty largely consistent in that
Yeah.
regard. So
Yeah.
I can't even say that.
And I think with pretty much a mother or mothers have stayed with us the whole time we've been in this house. We've only stayed apart, stayed together as a couple for 1 month. So that said, it's always been a bit of a
Yeah.
yeah. You don't have. We've had to again change our ideal of what romance is. So it's been consistent.
Yeah, I think that's a good word because it's been consistent because we've never went long periods without some intimacy, um, but we've never been rabbits either, right? We've never, yeah, whichever one it is what I'm supposed to remember.
When I'm thinking it's
I've actually behaved, haven't I?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, okay.
you've what? I didn't hear that.
You were saying he's behaved.
Oh, with the mothers. I think it's important to go back to what you talked about in the bar, the first date. This is what you should know about someone. So you talked about your attitudes towards religion. What else did you put on the table that a young couple should think about talking about? What do you want to have kids? What do you think about
Yeah.
God,
Finance.
money?
Finances, money. And definitely whether you want to have kids or not, definitely religion, responsibilities. Because we both came into it with mothers that we were responsible for taking care of. So whatever your responsibilities are, what your future goals be, if you're aware of what your future goals are. What else?
I don't know. I'm not being funny. You actually remember this conversation better than I do. I know we did. I know we
Oh,
did, but I
yeah.
don't. I literally
I
don't
just remember
remember.
we talked about previous relationship. We talked about what worked with our first relationship and what did not work. Yeah, we talked about everything.
Yeah. Well,
That takes a lot of courage. I mean, because you just met each other face to face anyway, but you'd had a lot of conversing,
right. I don't.
so you
Yeah,
had
I
some
don't recall
comfort.
we talked on. I don't remember
Yeah,
when
we
we
had talked on the phone maybe for about a month.
a month.
Maybe
So
about a
so
month.
it wasn't from. It
But
wasn't
I
from
can tell
too
you
long
what
ago.
prompted it also. Because we also talked about what we were looking for. We both were looking for a serious relationship, not saying we were looking for it with each other, since we just met each other and didn't really know each other. But we both were looking for a serious relationship. So here are the things that are the deal makers or breakers.
That's a good word, deal breakers. So what were some deal breakers for you two? I mean, I guess having you got to know that my mom is a package deal. You don't like that? That's
Yeah,
a deal breaker.
Mm.
right. Fidelity was definitely one for me. I expected it's not baseball. It's not three strikes and you're out. I expected fidelity.
um, I don't remember. I'm not being funny. This is one of those memory
No,
gaps.
but just thinking about like if you were talking to one of your students after 10 years after they graduated and they said, what I'm thinking of marrying this person.
Mhm.
What should I talk about that I may not think of asking?
Okay, so we we've done the externals, the mind. Yeah, yeah. It's well, the general is, do you generally view life the same? Like do you have some general view of life the same? Because if you have a core disconnect on how you view life, then that's problematic. Then that would be is as best you can see it. How do you view life, especially down the road? And then the other thing I would think, now that I've talked when I have kind of talked is, can you live with the thing that's wrong with your? Can you live? Can you live with the thing that's wrong with your spouse, right?
Right.
Can
That,
you?
that irritation now, will it? How do
Yeah,
you feel about it
yeah,
10 years
yeah.
from now?
Will you be able to? Yes, will you be able to go? She's still doing that, and never even bring it up to right. Just like you just take it right and live with it because this is part of right. You just at some point it's not even worth
What
fussing,
what's an
fighting.
example of something that's irritating like that?
Oh, let's see. You know,
Oh, I do. It's like one thing that I told him when we met was that I am not Betty Crocker. No, Betty Crocker is
oh
wrong. I'm
yeah,
not Hazel.
yeah.
I'm not the type of wife that will clean your house. If that's something that he was a little bit irritated about at the time,
Uh,
he really would need to think 10 years from now, is that something that you will be able
Yeah,
to overlook?
that's probably actually that's probably a good one from both standpoints because yeah,
We both are kind of cluttery.
well, yeah. I was supposed to say I less than you 'cause,
Yeah,
wow,
look closely around your work
yeah, well,
areas.
yeah, but it's yeah, yeah, and all yeah, those kinds of things are in my case. I have some general sense of okay, I know how to use a hammer and stuff like, but I'm not going to do major projects, right?
Right. If something needs to be put together in a house, most of the time I'm the one who
Yeah,
put it together.
yeah, right, but I generally if it's basic basic fix, I can do it and I will. But if it's anything beyond kind of basic, I'm like, yeah, I'm not spending all Saturday to learn how to tile a floor when I don't have any interest in doing that. So can you live with the person that that's going to be like, I can change the ice maker, fine, but I'm not doing the whole kitchen, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. People don't talk about that very much, but I think that's really important. If can you live with their particular flaws? Because no one's perfect, and that flaw might really bug someone else. But for me, I think it's maybe even amusing or something. That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. So, or you just, so are you going to be able to live with that?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Anything
That's it.
anything else that you would add to a young couple that's getting married, making a commitment that we haven't talked about? And do you really need to think about this?
The one thing that I wish more young couples thought about is just the natural changes relationships go throughout the year. You may get flowers every day the first year. After that, the flowers are going to cut down. Just as a silly example, just the whole nature of the relationship change, and it from us, I think we grew more closer friends. We still love each other and we still love each other romantically, but the friendship grows. And I think if most relationships that last a long period of time like that, the needs to grow. So you have to nurture the friendship as much as you do the romantic side of the relationship.
Right, because that's the foundation. Romance isn't. So you've been
Right.
married 21
No,
years?
no,
17.
17.
May will be 17.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing she was talking about is the couple things is, can you be bored, kind of be bored together,
Right.
because the number of especially younger people who go, well, they're not interested and they're not exciting anymore, and it's like, okay, it's really not going to be that interested a lot. Can you be bored together? And then two, what was the other one that comes up? There's one comes up, and I thought of when she was talking, I didn't make a good enough note of.
So that goes back to the friendship thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Can you be bored together? And then, also, there's going to be times where if things aren't right in the relationship, it's going to be your fault. Right.
What a concept.
Right. Right. And it's not gonna, and you've got to just deal with it. It's your fault. And you gotta be able to wake up and go.
Kind of work
Go. And your partner may or may not help you, but you might. Yeah. That last argument you had probably was your fault, not. Can you live? How much can you live with waking up and go? And sometimes the relationship not being exciting or whatever, are perfect, is going to last a lot longer than you're really comfortable. Kind of knowing. Right?
Well, work in a relationship is a job. It's work.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, like with a real job, every single thing you do it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it's not sparkly.
So the work is taking time to talk to each other and work through disagreement and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Or even, I would argue that, and when you ask, are anticipating disagreement, or even
How do you
right.
solve conflict?
Yeah, but how many can you solve before they have, right? How many do you solve before they have?
Keep it from getting to the conflict stage.
So are you both working from home now because of COVID?
No, just me.
No, we've been, my school's hybrid, but I physically have to be there, and so we have no, on any day, probably the biggest day we've had 20% of our students probably
In
physically. That's probably not 25% probably is the highest day we've had of the number of students, but I still have to physically go to the building and
Do the other kids that are at home Zoom while you're teaching the kids in the classroom, so you don't have to
yes,
do it twice?
correct, and often I'll either pre-tape or tape what I did in the classroom so that it can be replayed. I would say, especially the core lecture and core instruction is played. It is taped and played. It is taped so it can be replayed for the students who, because our schools, they also don't have to they don't have to sign in live for us. They can, if they need to do all their work at 8:30 at night, they can, and so we take the core instruction. And most days, I think I wind up doing it live and pre-record, but I do some pre-record.
Got it. Well, I'm reading about students who live in like large families and either they don't have Wi-Fi or it's noisy and there are many kids trying to work with one computer. Do your students struggle with the
So,
mechanics?
so, so, I, so at least I work at a charter school, and what they did, I want to say, well, they did it some last spring, but before this school year, they went every student has their own, and they also hotspotted the they hotspot the idea, and yeah, there are students and families that have a big variety. So even if everybody has their own computer, finding everybody's space is weird. So that sometimes that is the student. Actually, there's one kid that I'm talking my way into nonsense as to when he does both. Never mind. That it might make sense that because when he'll email me questions at weird times, and I was like,
That was probably why.
yes, and
Yeah.
I'm probably why because I know I teach his sister, and I know he has a younger. At least I know there's at least three bodies in there, and probably more. And so now I'm gonna give him a break now. I'm gonna give him more of a break because I'm like, dude, stop emailing me at 7:30 at night, right, right, and expecting me to answer immediately. I think that's why I get like, no,
What percent of your students are English as a second language learners?
ooh, so the population is largely Hispanic, but English is second language. Wait, I should know because I am the English as second language teacher on my campus. So we had 9 that were added. Probably 25 to 30% have our English as second language. And probably half of that is they're designated, and probably half of those are kids who you have to really struggle because even some are classified as English as a second language because their family came from Mexico or Central, but they've either been here long enough or the family speaks so much English at home to where they're they're classified, but
They can speak English pretty well.
they're largely fluent. So about half of our quote population falls in that category, and the other half you have to modify. I'll use the word modify. You have to be aware of their limitations, and I only have a handful where it's a barrier, where it's a literal day-to-day translate. And so
How's your Spanish?
not that good actually. Not relative. I at some point in graduate school I had to test out especially in reading comprehension, and I have. I just even with that population, I just don't speak enough to consistently hold a conversation to be able to hold a conversation past general courtesy. You know, Right, and at the school I'm at, because of the large Spanish population, we have multiple teachers who can speak past that. So I'm not. The honest answer is I'm not forced to improve. I'm not forced to improve. Um, and generally what happens now is, and it's not even bad sentences. It'll come up. A kid will be saying something, and he's surprised that I either can reply to them or understood what they said more than I can sit and hold a conversation, because I really can't. I'll just have moments of, oh, I understood that perfectly. Thank you, thank you. And I'm not even trying to be cursed at and stuff like that.
Got it.
Yeah.